Hi guys, Asmo here, and this is my video for 5 changes I'd like to see in PoE. The year is coming to an end, we're going to get a brand new PoE expansion, and because of that I wanted to reflect a little bit and take a look at some of the things in PoE that bother me a little bit, and as far as I know they bother a lot of people, and there are some interesting changes that I think could really benefit the PoE, and it would be really nice if they were added to the game. But without further ado, first change that I would like to see to PoE, I think a lot of people would be really hyped for that, is destructible doors. Imagine if you could just cyclone through the doors and the doors would just like get destroyed and splinters flying everywhere, metal bars being bent, and you just like smash through that, or you can like shield charge or dash through it somehow. You use your attack and the doors get destroyed and explode. This would be so much more satisfying than running through a map that has like the prison layout that has all kinds of like metal doors, or a lab that has all kinds of metal doors that don't serve any other purpose than to just annoy you and break down the flow of your game. It's really annoying when you have to like go through all of these doors and like click doors and doors and doors like 3 times in a row without any monsters in between. And this especially was brought to my attention with Heist, because this is basically like just making that annoying mechanic a feature of the league, which is completely different direction than I think I expected Heist to go. But in the end it ended up to being kind of like a door opening simulator, which is not something that anyone enjoys. Like if you listen to the PoE player base, everyone hates doors. People would much rather like destroy them. If you could like attack them, cast spells, like let's say you're doing like a freeze pulse or something, and like your freeze pulse hits the doors and they get destroyed and you can run through that, it would be so much more enjoyable. And basically this is like a free way of adding a feeling of power, of like your character being powerful without really affecting the balance, because your character will still be just as strong or as weak against the monsters and all the content. So you are not messing with the balance of the power of the game, but you're actually making the players feel more powerful. So this is like a win-win situation. I think they should definitely make sure that they focus on, at least for PoE 2, coding the game in a way that doors are actually destructible and you can smash through them. This would be really good. Second suggestion, something that personally is one of the least enjoyable things for me in the game every single league that I play, is unveiling. Because unveiling adds to your crafting bench, which is located in your hideout, and hideout does persist throughout the leagues. I think it would be reasonable to make it so that you have to unveil every single mod only once per account, and you don't have to do that in every single league. There are certain unveils that are very basic buffs, and I'm not talking about, for example, the crafts from the prophecies, right? The crafts from prophecies kind of make sense, and you can guarantee getting them. You can get a prophecy, buy it from a player in trade and guarantee getting that trade, and you can follow the chain of prophecies. Very easy and guaranteed and deterministic to get it, even though it takes a little while. But those are like very powerful crafts. But just like having basic like reduced mana, or like reduced mana cost, or having like minimum power charges or frenzy charges or endurance charges on your jewelry, like 1 charge, it's not such a big deal. It's a really good craft, but it's not that kind of a big deal that you would have to like stop players from having it early on. Because those things are good, especially early on, before you can find like super GG items, before you can afford the most expensive uniques. You're gonna rely on rare items, and you're gonna rely on having crafted mods on them, because that's what's gonna be like something that's accessible early on. But if you do not find those in the unveils, and you're not lucky enough to find them, because you might just end up spamming over and over the same item trying to unveil the right mod, but you're just not getting it, and you have all of these other ones completed and you're simply unlucky and you don't get the one that you need for your mod. This is like gating certain builds, especially in SSF, behind RNG, which is not something that you should be really doing too much, and especially if it's like repetitive, mind-numbingly tedious task of like having to pick up the right items, having to like either remove them from filter or remember which ones you specifically need, which ones you completed, give it to June, click on the one you need, click on the unveil, take the item, put it in your inventory, or like destroy it or throw it on the ground or sell it. You have to like micromanage every single item just to be able to see that you're actually not getting anything that you would like. So I think this is something that should be added to like persisting content that persists between the leagues, because crafting bench is in your hideout, and I think the things that are in your hideout should basically stay between the leagues, and making every single player like unveil all of these mods every single league, I think it doesn't really add anything to the game. If you feel like that would invalidate the concept of like betrayal or like the rewards of betrayal, you can make sure that, for example, if a player has that, like the more bench crafts you have unlocked, maybe the less rewarding, or like the more rewarding the betrayal becomes. Like you can manage like the betrayal rewards, even though betrayal is still pretty good, and it's a mechanic that's very much worth doing for very specific things like Vorici white sockets, for specific scarabs. You can make a lot of money on that. For Leo Exalt, there are a lot of things. I think the transportation and fortification houses should be buffed a little bit, but overall betrayal is still very much worth doing, even if it didn't give the unveils. So definitely something that I would like to see, like unveiling just gone from having to do it every single league. Just if you unlock that craft, it stays in your crafting bench in your hideout forever on that account, or until it gets, I guess, changed or removed from the game. So that's my second suggestion. The third suggestion I have is stacking items to pick up, which means like Perandus coins, breach splinters, all kinds of items like little splinters, little items, little currency shards. Just make them stack together. It shouldn't be that hard to make it so that if like player displays certain items, because I know this will affect items even if you like hide it from the filter. This adds some extra like calculations that have to be done when monsters are dying and when the loot is being generated. But then again, like you shouldn't punish players for the fact that you're coding the game a certain way, and you should at least make it so that players are able to click on like one splinter and it picks up all of the splinters of the same kind in an area. So if there are like a bunch of Perandus coins, one on top of another, when you click on one of them, it should pick up all of the other ones as well. You shouldn't make players like click on one coin when sometimes they drop like 78 coins and you click that and you pick that up. So of course, the solution to that right now is to use a loot filter, right? To just like hide all of the low stacks and only show the high stacks of them. Like that's what I do, for example. I don't show other than Chayula splinters in my loot filter. I don't show at certain time of the progression in the league. I don't show the other splinters unless it's like 10 plus, so that I pick them up in a bigger chunk, because it's just like picking up 0.1 chaos, which is not really worth it. But it would be much better if they actually stacked up so they can actually benefit from the loot you are dropping, instead of having to hide that because it's too tedious to even deal with it. That's not enjoyable, that's not helping anyone, and it's basically making people think that they have to click so much in order to make currency, while the actual like smart move is to hide it and not even engage with that mechanic. So if the mechanic in the game is something that is actually better to not engage with it, either remove it or make it better, right? So this should be made better by basically making these items stack together so that they're easier to pick up, or making sure that player can like click on one of them and pick up all of the ones of the same kind. You could also make it easier for players to pick up items in general. I think this is something that is very annoying right now in the game, and it's much better if you can just run through maps, and I find it much more enjoyable if I make my filter way stricter so that I have less items to pick up, because picking up items is very annoying, tedious, and needlessly difficult in this game. So that's something that I think should be addressed. The fourth change that is probably going to be a lot bit controversial is the flask macro. So for those of you who don't know, if you play PoE on the Chinese client, there are a lot of different changes that don't exist on the global PoE servers. One of those changes is that in the options, if you actually go to like options and UI or input, one of those, you will actually find an option to select which flasks do you want to have bound to another hotkey. And that hotkey will use all of them. So you can, for example, use your like first 3 flasks or 2 flasks or 4, whichever flasks you want, and you will have that hotkey that will activate those flasks. This is essentially a flask macro integrated into the game. Right now, currently, it is against the terms of service to use the flask macro, which means GGG can ban you for using that. It is not allowed. It is not even allowed to like use something mechanical to press multiple keys at the same time. Of course, they can't really enforce that, but this is something that is not allowed in the terms of service of the game. So they could ban you for that. But I think instead of doing that, they should actually go complete 180 on that and add an ability to bind multiple flasks to one key. That's simple. Just make sure like have a key, select 1 to 5, like which flask slot you want to bind to that key, and have a key that you can trigger multiple flasks at the same time. It's fine if you like using just one skill and just like cyclone and movement skill, and you don't need to press anything else, and okay, then you can press like multiple buttons for the flasks. But right now in the PoE, especially in the direction that the developers want to take it into, there are so many buttons that you press. Like you want to press smoke mine and then also use dash or flame dash or shield charge. You want to use like multiple movement skills because it makes you faster. You want to use also like guard skills, so you put them on a left click. Like for example, I have a vortex on a left click because it's an instant skill. Sometimes you want to put detonate mine on an instant skill. Then you have your main damage skill. Then you have like your Val skills. Then you have like Val Grace or Val Haste or Val RF or Val Mortal Shell. You also have war cries on top of that. Like there are builds that use multiple war cries at the same time. So you have so many buttons that you have to manage right now. And on top of that, 5 other flasks. Like if you go CI, you have like 5 flasks that are your defensive and offensive flasks. And the game is balanced around you having those flasks up all the time while mapping. The defenses of your character are balanced around using those flasks. You are going to be dying without using those flasks, but if you do use them, you're gonna be very safe. You still might die, okay, if your character is not strong enough, but you're gonna be much safer. The game is balanced around actually you using those flasks almost all the time, which is why it's kind of silly to expect like players, like all players, to use them all the time. The thing about things like that, about like ease of use mechanics like that, is that people always are thinking, oh no, this is gonna help bots, right? Because you're automating something, like for example with the item pickups, you're automating something and it's gonna help bots, but it's actually exactly backwards. It's exactly the other way around. You're actually not helping bots because bots already are way better at picking up individual items. A bot can click on the individual items way quicker than a player can, and a good player can also do that way quicker than a bad player can. So the people that you're actually helping with those quality of life changes are bad players or new players or people who are not so good, or like people who are older or younger and are not playing so well. And that's who you actually want to play, because that's the majority of your player base. Like majority of your player base are not 5-head god gamers who are like doing everything perfectly. The majority of the player base are players who are actually struggling with all of those things. And the game would be much more enjoyable, and it would like kind of close the gap between the best players and the weakest players in like slight, like comfortable ways. It would not make those players suddenly as good as the good players, but it would help them not suck so much, and it would make the game more enjoyable for them, which is, I think, what everyone wants. So that's why I would actually be for doing that. Not to mention that some people already are using the Flask macro, and it's like an unfair advantage right now. You should basically allow everyone to use something like that, just like on the Chinese client. Like I don't agree with everything that the Chinese client has. Some of the things that are on there I'm against, but this is one of those changes that I would definitely like to see in the global PoE client. And the last, number 5 change that I would like to see in PoE is the ability to store and trade the missions. So the missions that you get every day, and when you complete maps, you have a chance to get a mission as well. And you have the Einhar mission, you have Alva mission, you have Nico, you have the Betrayal mission, and you have Zana mission as well. So some of those are really important and really good for doing certain type of content, and some of those you're not gonna care at all. So if you're progressing your atlas, it is gonna be so good to get Zana, right? If you wanna if you're struggling on map sustain, you want Zana all the way. If you want the crafts, or if you wanna manage your betrayal, you wanna get certain safe houses, you want the betrayal ones. If you are doing delve, this is where you want the Nico ones. If you wanna juice your maps as much as possible, you're gonna want the Alva or also the beasts. And beasts are also great if you want the specific beast craft. If you're hunting for aspects of the spider or something like that, and you definitely wanna spam a lot of beasts. So there are very specific situations where you want more of certain mission and less of another, and currently there is no way to trade that. There are some prophecies like Master Seeks Help, for example, that allow you to get certain missions, but this is not reliable. It's not gonna proc every time, I think, and it would be much better if you would be able to utilize the missions that you, for example, don't want. Let's say you hate delving. Let's say you're never gonna delve and you have so many missions for delve. If you would be able to store them, that would be amazing. So the way I think that could work is if you had an item that would look something like the Divine Vessel that you use to get your Pantheons, and you put that item in with your map, and if you have that item, that would consume the mission that you're gonna pick. So let's say you pick a mission, you pick this mission, right? Because you have you run out of all of your Alvas, and this is the only thing you care about. And now you have a bunch of Nikos, which you don't care about. You put that item, like the Divine Vessel type of thing, you put that item in, you open a map with the Nico, and at the end of the map, when you kill the boss, or when you complete the map, when you exit the map, you're gonna have the item infused with that mission. And then another person can grab this item and either consume it to add their mission, or either put it in their map device to get that mission, right? So this is something that would help you customize your content, customize the content that you want to be running. Also, it will allow you to make some money on certain things. You could be smart about how you're managing yourself, how you're managing your missions, and save the valuable ones and sell them to people if you, for example, prefer doing other type of content. So this is something that I would like to be introduced into the game. A lot of people have bunch of missions that they're not using, and other people would love to have more of those, and they don't have it, and there's no way to share it other than to play in groups. And this is something that would definitely help people and help people customize the content a little bit. So that's it. Those are my 5 suggestions, 5 changes that I would like to see in PoE. Let me guys know what you think in the comments below. Tell me what are the changes that you would like to see in PoE. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.